So what we're doing and the problem we're solving is taking the best assets in the world, the most desirable assets in the world, and making them available to everyone.
Hi everyone, I'm Polly Speak, CBO at Cryptic, and we're studying at RWA Summit here in Hong Kong. Here with me, one of the bright-minded people in the whole Web2 and Web3 industries, Scott Thiel. He's CEO and co-founder at Tokinvest, and I'm here to touch him with a lot of different questions. So, Scott, hi. The first question that I wanted to ask you today is how you end up in Web3 and how you end up building what you're building. I know that you have incredible journey. Can you share it with us, please?
Yeah, sure. So my journey is, originally I was a computer science engineering grad. This is way back literally last century. Beyond that, I became a lawyer for many, many years. And, Web3 and particularly the evolution into real world assets is the confluence of those skills. It's the digitization of rights. What I did for 25 years as a lawyer was put rights in contracts. Tokens represent rights in a digital form with a smart contract that are now able to be fractionalized. So really it was a very natural confluence of my background being, a computer science grad turned lawyer, and tokenization being really the merger of those two disciplines.
Well, Scott is in the industry more than I'm living in this earth, I would say, and as most of the people in Web3. But I think that your experience led you naturally to what you're building right now, and it's incredible what kind of a background you have. But what exact problem are you solving at Tokinvest?
Yeah, the mission statement, if you get kind of our reason for being, is really around democratizing access to financial products. Traditional financial products are only available to rich people, accredited investors, and that's 1% of the world. So, on the back of our shirts, it literally says, own what the 1% are. So what we're doing and the problem we're solving is taking the best assets in the world, the most desirable assets in the world, and making them available to everyone. That has involved being part of a team that wrote the regulatory framework in Dubai, which allows us to access retail investors. Obviously, they're moving there, setting up a company there, getting regulated there, and doing all of those things that makes it possible. But underpinning all of that is, what do people want to buy? And I've always looked at crypto and the evolution of on-chain assets, whether that's NFTs, meme coins. In large part, people have participated because there was a buy button and they were allowed to push it. Traditional finance, there is a buy button, but you can only push it if you're rich. That's meant that those best regulated, well-managed, high-yielding assets in the world have not been available to most people. We're going to create the buy button for those assets that everyone can push.
So, Scott, there are a lot of problems in our industry for a long time, but this year, I feel it's like a special year. How do you think, what is the main problem that we need to conquer as an industry in 2026?
I think some of it now comes down to education and an understanding about this transition to being able to buy real assets on blockchain and what that means for investors and for asset owners looking to raise capital. And there have been a lot of own goals, there have been a lot of self-harm inflicted, particularly in the Web3 industry over the years with bad behaviours. I guess one of the things that worries me looking forward is RWA is being done wrong, RWA is being put into DeFi, and it turns out there isn't really a real-world aid reference there. Now, the unregulated RWA, therefore, is the danger. And I think we could get damage done to the narrative and to the industry if we have more of those types of things. So a call to regulators to stamp out that type of activity. But also a call, I guess, on the participant side to seek out, the regulated asset. This is what's made traditional finance what it is only trusted, regulated products that have been designed with investor protections in mind are allowed to be sold. It's very different to crypto assets where somebody spins up a BVI entity, throws out a token, and those projects tend to look like that. And, that's the evolution of the industry. Now that, to me, is a bit of an education piece that needs to happen this year. The good news is now that the regulatory frameworks exist, we are able to actually get real-world assets on-chain legally, compliantly, and in the hands of retail investors. So hopefully the ability for people to actually do it right now is going to prevail over the inevitable bad news story from here to there.
That's a great answer. Thank you so much, Scott. In a very grounded way, I can see it. We are missing compliance still. Their regulated frameworks are already existing, but so little percent of the people know about it. They actually read it and understand it. So I do agree that the main problem to solve right now is to actually be applicable for the regulations that we have, and of course education. That will drive an institutional adoption and mass adoption for sure. But if we're talking about one quick advice for people who are just entering Web3 or the world of conversions between Web2 and Web3, what you will say to them?
Yeah, and I get a lot of reach outs from people looking to, I'd like to build an A platform, for example. I think the lift that's involved in becoming regulated is quite daunting, particularly for startup companies. I know this because we've done it. One of the recommendations I would say is think about the bit where you are going to add value, whether it's the technology build, whether it's the asset selection, whether it's distribution. What's the key piece that you're actually bringing to the solution? And maybe there's a better way of partnering with an existing regulated business. Now, let me give a simple, slightly trite example of that. When you say to startups, startups come to me today and they're asking these questions, and I say, well, do you have a bank account? And they say, yeah, we've got a bank account, of course. Okay, great. Did you just go and get a bank account, or did you build your own bank first? And they look at me like I'm silly. It's like, what do you mean build my own bank? It's like, well, you're trying to build a regulated broker-dealer, issuer, exchange infrastructure. Do you really need to be all of those things? Or can you go and get the equivalent of a bank account by going and partnering with a regulated entity like ourselves and doing the bit where you're really going to add value? And I think it's a bit of a learning curve. In Web3, you were able to do a lot yourself because projects could be spun up quickly, issuances could be done quickly. The regulated pathway is years of regulatory approvals. It's many millions of dollars of building these businesses, and a lot of people misunderstand that. So I think my advice would be, where's the sweet spot that you're adding value and you want to build, and who are the partners you should be working with to make that possible, rather than going and building your own bank first.
Yeah, well, guys, don't rush your decisions. First of all, do a research, like a deep research. What is going on in the industry right now? Maybe someone is already doing the same thing that you're thinking about to launch. So do your research. Take your time as well to research the partners with you can organize that. And yeah, don't rush decisions. Otherwise, Web3 is fast, of course, but as we're accepting all the regulations due to all the legal claims and further progression, we still have time. So take your time, don't rush, and think deeply about the value that you can add that nobody else is adding right now. And yeah, thank you so much, Scott, for all the deep answers that I'm hearing today. And dear listeners, if you love the way that Scott is thinking, don't forget to drop a follow to official accounts of Cryptic, RWA Summit, Tokinvest. There's going to be much more things that we need to discuss soon. Thank you, and we'll see each other on next interview.